2 weeks ago, in London, the same man who won the 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for solving protein folding closed a $2.1 billion bet on the future of medicine. He's Sir Demis Hassabis. He runs Google DeepMind and Isomorphic Labs. The pharma backers, Eli Lilly and Novartis, have already committed $3 billion in partnership deals, and the technology underneath it just rewrote what's possible in drug discovery. And here's the part nobody is talking about. This company has not given its drug to a single human being. Not one. 0 patients. The bet he just sold to Abu Dhabi's sovereign AI fund is that AlphaFold can do for medicine what Genentech did for biotech in 1976. 6 years from founding to first drug. The clock just started. To understand the bet, start with the man making it. Demis Hassabis was born in London in 1976. The same year Genentech was founded 6,000 miles away in San Francisco. By age 13, he was a chess master, FIDE rating over 2300. At 17, he co-designed Theme Park, a video game built at Bullfrog Productions in 1994. Then Cambridge, Queen's College, Computer Science, double first, 1997. Then a UCL PhD in neuroscience studying, of all things, episodic memory. In 2010, he co-founded DeepMind in London with Shane Legg and Mustafa Suleyman. Founders Fund, Horizons Ventures, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk all wrote checks. 4 years later, Google bought it for around £400 million. Then came AlphaGo, defeating Lee Sedol in 2016. AlphaZero, AlphaFold 1 in 2018, AlphaFold 2 in 2020, which CASP founder John Molt publicly declared had solved the 50-year grand challenge of protein folding. By 2022, DeepMind had released the structures of 200 million proteins, essentially the entire known protein universe, free, online. In March 2024, Hassabis was knighted. In October that same year, he won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Half went to David Baker at the University of Washington, the other half went to Hassabis and his DeepMind colleague John Jumper for protein structure prediction. 5 months later, Isomorphic Labs, a company Hassabis had quietly spun out of DeepMind in 2021, closed its first $600 million external round. 2 weeks ago, it just closed its second. Here is the part most people don't understand. AlphaFold 2 solved one problem. Predict what shape a protein folds into. That's a Nobel Prize-worthy achievement, but it doesn't make a drug. To make a drug, you need something harder. You need to predict what happens when a protein meets a molecule. Where does it bind? How tightly? What happens next? That is what AlphaFold 3 does, published in Nature on May 8, 2024. They built a new architecture, borrowing diffusion models, the same kind of AI that powers image generation, and applied them to molecules. The result? At least 50% better than every specialized tool that came before it. Near experimental accuracy on how antibodies bind to their targets. This is the technical fulcrum the entire $2.1 billion bet sits on. Because if you can predict, on a computer, how a drug-like molecule binds to a disease-causing protein, you can simulate millions of candidates before you ever set foot in a lab. Isomorphic calls its production version ISO-DDE, the Isomorphic Drug Design Engine. Approximately 17 drug programs running across cancer, immunology, and cardiovascular disease. Multiple programs partnered with Eli Lilly, multiple with Novartis, an undisclosed number with Johnson & Johnson, that deal announced in January. Hassabis told Fortune at Davos this year, and I'm paraphrasing, you wouldn't want to fly an airplane designed by hand, but every drug ever approved by the FDA was designed exactly like that. That is what he is trying to change, and that is what AlphaFold 3 was built for. So why does anyone hand a Nobel laureate $2 billion to make drugs that don't exist yet? Because this has happened before. April 7th, 1976. Two men meet for what was supposed to be a 10-minute conversation. The meeting goes 3 hours. The bar is Churchill's in San Francisco. The men are Herbert Boyer, a UCSF biochemist whose 3-year-old recombinant DNA technique had just proven you could cut and paste genes between organisms, and Robert Swanson, a 28-year-old who'd just been let go from his job at Kleiner Perkins. They start a company. Kleiner Perkins puts up $100,000. They name it Genentech. Genentech had no product. It had a technology. The technology was cut a piece of human DNA, paste it into E. coli, let the bacteria make the human protein. The first proof of concept landed in 1977 with somatostatin. The second, human insulin, cloned and expressed in 1978. Genentech immediately licensed it to a Midwestern pharmaceutical giant, Eli Lilly. Lilly handled the manufacturing, the FDA trials, the approval. October 29, 1982, Humulin became the first recombinant DNA drug ever approved by the FDA, 6.5 years from founding. In 1990, Roche bought 60% of Genentech for $2.1 billion. Stop and listen to that number again, $2.1 billion, the same number Isomorphic just raised. In 2009, Roche completed the full acquisition, $46.8 billion at $95 a share. Same first pharma partner, Eli Lilly. Same tech platform, first founding patent. Same, roughly, 6-year build to first approved drug. If Isomorphic is the next Genentech, the company that buys it in 2059 is already in the picture, and it's Eli Lilly. But there is the part nobody at the Series B announcement wanted to dwell on. 12 months ago, at Davos, January 23, 2025, Hassabis said this on stage. These are his exact words. We and others are working on trying to design drugs with AI. And with our spin-out company, Isomorphic, I think we will hopefully have some AI-designed drugs in the clinic trials by the end of the year. That's the plan. By the end of the year, he missed by 12 months. Davos 2026, Hassabis returned and revised the first clinical trials target to end of 2026. This is not a failure. This is the canonical pattern. AlphaFold can design a molecule in a week, but you can't shortcut the next 3 years of pharmacology. You cannot AI your way through animal toxicology. That takes months of dosing in mice and rats. You cannot AI your way through an IND filing. That's an investigational new drug application. Basically, a 600-page document the FDA reads page by page before allowing humans into the trial. And you cannot AI your way through phase 1. That is 20 to 100 human volunteers with their actual livers and kidneys. In Silico Medicine, another AI drug discovery firm, already has its lead drug, rentosertib, finishing phase 2A trials and heading to phase 3 later this year. In Silico's founding was 2014. 12 years. That is what the timeline actually looks like. So watch where the money came from. $2.1 billion. Lead investor, Thrive Capital, founded by Joshua Kushner. Existing backers, Alphabet, GV, rolling their pro rata. New investors, Temasek out of Singapore. Capital G, the growth arm of Alphabet, the UK government's brand new sovereign AI fund. And MGX. If you watched our last video on Sam Altman's compute commitments, you already know MGX, Abu Dhabi's sovereign AI fund, chaired by Sheikh Tahnoon bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Founded March 2024 with a target $100 billion of investable capital. In the last 11 months, MGX has joined the cap tables of OpenAI, xAI, and Anthropic, 3 frontier AI labs in 11 months. Now, Isomorphic, 4. That is the story. Sovereign AI capital is no longer just buying compute. It is buying the molecules the compute might one day design. AlphaFold won the Nobel. The next prize isn't Stockholm. It's the FDA. $2 billion buys him exactly one thing. The 3 years no AI can shortcut.